Hello, YouTube. All right, so I'm really appreciating the. Sorry, I just woke up. I'm really appreciating the comments on the channel, and I'm actually quite amazed at how popular this channel has gotten so quickly. Just looking at the numbers, I've got another channel, as you can see up here. I've got another channel that's like my full-time job, and I don't get anywhere near the amount of views that this channel is getting. So I'm gonna see if I can continue to uh, heal and be helpful to others by talking on this channel more often. So one of the things I like to do on my other channel is respond to comments. So if you have comments or questions about my experience, if you want to share your experience, feel free to do that. What I like to do is I like to have discussions. So if you do leave a comment or a question, I assume that you're open for discussion and you're open for me sharing my opinion, even if my opinion is opposing yours. It's not a personal thing. We're here to heal and to find the truth, and I think it's important to be helpful and to mirror back to each other what we see, because sometimes we can't see the truth within ourselves. If we are, dating borderlines, we are codependent, and we do need help sometimes seeing the truth. In any case, that's all I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to walk through the comments. If you are somebody who is borderline, I do know that some borderlines come onto my channel. Bear in mind, once again, I am not a psychologist, I am not a therapist, and I can't say that I understand what having borderline personality disorder is. But if you are watching this channel and you're able to, hear some of the things that where we're coming from, those of us who are non-borderline, I think the best way that you can use this channel is to once again realize that we may not understand you. So if you feel like we are unduly criticizing you or saying things that aren't true, you might be right. But bear in mind that's our experience, and we all non-borderlines all share a fairly common experience, and you can, at the very least, learn what the damage is that your mental illness is doing. And so don't take it personally. This is a fact-finding mission. So if you can hear what we're saying and then apply it and learn, if you want to, ways that you can avoid causing other people harm without meaning to, then this might be a good place for you. Other than that, this might not be the place for you if you're a borderline and you're looking for help. You might need to find somebody who's qualified and able to help you understand what's going on with you better than we can, which is a good place to start. If you are a non-borderline, you are codependent. Codependence is a psychological illness, if you will. It's not a mental illness, but it definitely is. I mean, maybe it could be, but it's definitely a psychological illness. And if you are in a romantic relationship with somebody who has full-on borderline personality disorder, then you are in fact in denial, and you are in fact operating from what we could call a form of insanity. So I want to address that, the idea that you can help them, that insanity, and the damage that you cause them by trying to help them. So let's see here. Sorry, I'm looking for, okay, here it is. So here's Magus Bernie says, in response to my video, How to Understand Borderline Personality Disorder, Don't Take It Seriously, or something like that. I can't remember. It's got a picture of a crying toddler. And what I was trying to share in that video is that you believe that you're with somebody who has the emotional maturity of an adult. But in reality, even though mentally and um, intellectually they may be fully adult, uh, on a psychological level, in their emotions, they're still operating from a toddler or an infant. What's called arrested development. So their emotional and psychological development, and perhaps in some cases, I don't know, maybe even their mental development, is arrested at the age that they went through whatever the trauma was that happened to them as infants, which again was probably, well, not probably, in order to be borderline, there has to be some major serious trauma. As well as I understand there's some genetic predisposition. So they become emotionally arrested at that age. So even though they can speak well and communicate, like an adult, they act out on an emotional level the same way that an infant or a toddler would. And so I was saying in that video that if you know that, and I was using pictures to show, you think you're with this, and I show a picture of a really beautiful adult young woman, and then I said, in reality, you're with this, and I showed a picture of a toddler little girl in mommy's dress and high heels. And if you understand that, and you're trying to have a romantic sexual relationship with a toddler, that is in essence child abuse. And it's abusive. If you know that, and you're still trying to bring them up to an adult level, or if you're, it's one thing if you don't know any better, but if you know and you're still going after it, then, that's like child abuse. And the reason why I use that's an extreme example. I did that to help shock the codependent into a realization of how futile it is, that what they're chasing after is not true love. And they're not coming from a place of true love, that they're coming from their own projection and their transference. And they're projecting and transferring onto the borderline. And that's abusive also, when you realize that. So Magus Burney says, you can still try to help without being a Jeffrey Epstein. That's ridiculous, to equate helping someone you love as a selfish act with a toddler. Come on now, most borderlines I have dated are so promiscuous that they would make Heidi Fleiss blush. So Magus, you're revealing a couple of things here. Your emotional reaction shows that that you have an attachment to the idea of being with them. So that's the first red flag, which tells me that you're in denial. You may not understand your codependence. First off, I can understand your desire to try to help them, but that is a complete delusion. The only way that you could help them is if that there was something that you could do to help them out of that emotionally arrested place. And the truth is that borderlines use your emotional attachment to them as a coping mechanism. They use you the way a drug addict uses drugs. So it doesn't help them. It keeps them arrested. It keeps them in their, acting out on their emotional and mental illness. If you really want to help them, loving them is not what they need. That's what they want, but it's not what they need. What they need is to be able to feel those feelings and be able to then look at that and in some kind of therapeutic sense, be able to then do the work to become and act more maturely in their responses. And as long as you are feeding them, what people call the supply, as long as you are their supply and you're feeding them that love and that support, you're only helping them to stay addicted and stay in their infantile state. So that's the delusion. You can't help them. And if you realize that you can't help them, then there's no reason for you to be there. So if you're denying that and you're wanting to fight with me about the idea that you can help them, then that means that you are in fact codependent, which means you're damaging yourself. But to equate someone, as you say here, to equate helping someone you love as a selfish act with a toddler is right. If you don't know any better, this is called unconsciousness. On an unconscious level, you are doing that. But if you, my job here, well, my desire here is to, in this video, was to shock you into awareness that you're with a toddler who happens to have all the functioning sexual organs of an adult. And so it is a selfish act because you know that they don't have control over that. You know that they can't control their impulses, especially when it comes to things like sex. That was my point. Since they can't control their sexual impulses and they use their sexual impulses as a way to escape, like we all do, then you knowing that and indulging in that with them, because let's be honest, I mean, the sex with borderlines is phenomenal because they have no self-awareness. You know, they don't have any, well, actually, that's not true at all. I was going to say that they don't have any, you know, they don't have any self-consciousness, but actually, as I think about it now, the girl I was with would split during sex, and there were times when she would split crazy during sex, and we forget about that. Maybe you haven't experienced that, but you know, with mine, it was, you never knew what the hell you were going to get. You were going to get the best sex of your life, or you were going to get her stopping in the middle and having to, you know, clutch her head and, you know, find something wrong with you physically, you know, me. There was something I was doing that was disgusting to her, you know, and it was just normal stuff. So it was pretty crazy making. And then this last one is really telling here. Come on now, most borderlines I've dated are so promiscuous that they make Heidi Fleiss blush. Well, that's like saying, come on now, most drug addicts are constantly sticking needles in their neck and in their veins all the time. So me putting a needle in their neck isn't going to be a problem because they're doing it anyway. Well, the point is if you're conscious of that, and you know that they are promiscuous, and you know that they have impulse control when it comes to sex, and you are personally getting off on that, then that makes you abusive, because this is somebody who isn't in control. And, you know, karmically, if you don't know any better, you don't know any better, you're still karmically responsible. But if you know, then there's that much more karma that's going to fall on your head. Yeah, right. She'll find somebody else and they won't know, or they'll be, you know, damaged in their own way. And that's their karma. So Meg, is my bottom line is that you are, from my perspective, you're in denial. And what you're missing is that codependents have their own selfishness as well. It is selfish. It's a form of selfishness, and you are arrested in your emotional development. You're seeking after something, you know, that went wrong in your childhood, and that's what the borderline stimulates in you. So on the one hand, you're in denial about, I think, what's happening with you. But yeah, if you can understand that you know, having a sexual relationship with a borderline, when you know that on an emotional level they're a toddler, you're responsible for that. And that was my hope is to help you to move out of that, is to get you out of a dangerous situation for yourself so that you can heal. Anyway, I'm starting to babble, so I'll move on. Nobody Nowhere, same kind of thing. Again, this isn't an attack. This is, I'm sharing my understanding. So this one is dating a borderline. Your relationship is not what you think. Same kind of thing. I got a picture of a little girl in mommy's dress and heels. And Nobody Nowhere says, I literally got interested in the red flags and I knew it. I was never in denial in that sense. I needed to know what it was about. It's not even that you are sad about what you hoped the relationship was. It's actually more about your mother relationship. It's just re-experiencing that early trauma, and this is a worthy reason to actually something. I don't see the rest of it here. So again, denial. Um, what you're talking about is that's what we do as codependents when we're not in our, when we're not in a healthy frame of mind. When we damage ourselves, the reason why we are attracted to borderlines is because they do stimulate in us unresolved mommy issues. And this is the definition in general of many dysfunctional relationships, is that people seek them out on an unconscious level, trying to recreate the trauma so that they can fix it. And that's why it never works. And that's why, you go from one dysfunctional relationship to another, because you aren't able to fix it that way. It's a flawed strategy, and it's, unfortunately what we all do. You seek out your abuser, and then you try and get them to love you. You try and fix it. You try and get your power back. And if you're unconscious about it, then it just causes you more and more trauma. So if you become aware, as you say, which I'm not sure you were aware of it, because if you were aware of what was really going on, you would go, wait a second, this isn't helpful to me at all. This is just going to hurt me. And you would walk away. So if you're seeking it out, thinking that you're going to get some kind of benefit out of re-traumatizing yourself, it means that you're in denial and that you are in your addiction. And listen, I mean, I had this experience, there when I was coming out of that. I mean, I fantasized all the time about, the great sex and how I could get her to, keep her in that state of idealization. And that was controlling and abusive and, on my end. But I was trapped. It sounds like you're still not in full awareness of what's going on. Then you responded again to the same video. That thumbnail, borderlines are truly children. They live in a fantasy of make-believe, and children can't love. All they can do is need and role play. And the child is the best case. The other part of the borderline is simply the cold, unemotional, super ego, narcissistic, punitive parent. So anyway, so enough to know that there's something wrong with it, and maybe you're just talking about where you were, and that you saw the red flags and, quote, knew what it was, and your curiosity, out of curiosity, I wanted to experience it. Of course, I think that's total denial. Maybe you realize that looking back on it, but anyway, I just had to respond to that. Sheppy says, what was really shocking for me was the memory impairment of my ex-borderline. She could not recall things that happened even a day or two ago. Their ability to recall events and remember things from the past is a huge struggle for them. So I haven't had enough exposure to different, I've only been with one, full-on borderline that I'm aware of. And she was, especially at the end, I was able to see, thankfully. It was like the veneer came open after she had dumped me for the last time. And I was, she dumped me, like, as you heard my story, one day she's opening her whole life to me. She's going to give me her car. You can come live with me. I'll take care of you during the holidays. You're my best friend. We're going to be friends forever. Blah, blah, blah. I love you. I'm here for you. You never have to worry about that. To, I can never see you again. You're the most dangerous person in the world. I'm breaking off all contact on Christmas Day. And so New Year's Day, after dealing with that for however that was, a week, and not being able to comprehend it, I said, I need to talk to you. I just need to get some closure. And, she said, I said, I'm going to come over. And she said, okay. And then when I showed up, she said, what are you doing here? And she was in her nightgown and in bed. She says, what are you doing here? And I said, I just called you. She said, yeah, I know. I thought we were going to talk on the phone. I said, no, I told you I was coming over. And she says, all right, whatever. And she was just so flustered, and she hadn't had time to put herself together as she does and put her, whatever mask on to be able to interact. And I saw her in her, her true state. And she was really lost and really confused and really frightened of just absolutely everything, and incapable of even having a discussion. And trying to talk to her about, okay, so on thus and such date, which was only a week earlier, you said this. She goes, what? I said, you remember New Year's or Christmas Eve? Christmas Eve? I don't know anything about that. What month is it now? And she couldn't even function, couldn't even remember anything. And so it was that I saw how really mentally impaired she was. And it was a real eye-opening thing, that's who you're trying to have a relationship with. It's thoroughly impossible. So I'm with you on that. So that means that the trauma that they've experienced, and perhaps even lack of brain development or perhaps brain damage, is it's really quite shocking. And that's helpful for us to know. If you can see that, then you can see what it is you're trying to have a relationship with, and why you can't take any of it personally. They have no idea really what they're doing. All right, so other people encouraging me to perhaps put together some kind of counseling or something like that. I'll keep thinking about that. All right, so that was kind of it. I just wanted to take a look at the denial that we have. If you are with a borderline, by definition, you are in denial. And yes, if you are aware if you can really see how mentally impaired they are, how emotionally impaired they are, how arrested their emotional development is, that they are not just a toddler, but they're a human being with damage, and they can only function from that toddler, not just a toddler, but a damaged toddler perspective. You will never, by the way, the other thing is, you will never ever become more than their parent. You will always be their parent. And they have a love-hate relationship with their parent in their minds. And so what's going to happen is, when any real intimacy takes place, which is what you're trying to do when you're trying to help them, is you're also trying to create intimacy. When you really do actually successfully create some intimacy, the only response they will have is to hate you the way that they hate the abusive parent. And that will never go away. When I was with my ex-borderline, I heard about all the ex-boyfriends that she had that reminded her of her father. And I heard her talk ad nauseum about how horrible and weak her father was, and what a horrible man, and how he didn't do this and didn't do that. And it sounds like a little kid talking about, daddy made me sit in the corner. And then, of course, I became that. Out of nowhere, I started hearing about her saying, yeah, and you remind me of my father, and that disgusts me, and those kinds of things. But that's what's waiting for you, without a doubt. That's the only thing you can ever be. And the end result is that you can't avoid creating intimacy, because that's what you both want. And you can't avoid the end result, which is that they will see you as the abusive parent, and they're trying to heal their trauma by breaking away from that. So there's nothing in it for you. Anyway, again, I just woke up. I'm babbling a little bit and got some text to look at. So that's it for me on this one. Best of luck to everybody, and I'm going to keep more eye on this channel, because it seems to be taking off, and I'm gonna continue to be a part of it. So, all right, that's it. Talk to you later.